This is SLP by day,
author by night,
with Tali, Kellerstein, and
Becca Eisenberg,
bringing the SLP writing community
together.
Hi, I'm Tali Kellerstein, pediatric speech-language pathologist and founder of the Speak Boutique. I'm so excited to be co-hosting this podcast, SLP by day, author by night, with my brilliant friend Becca Eisenberg, as we celebrate the stories and voices of SLPs who are changing the game through creativity and connection. You can learn more about my work at thespeakboutique.com. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. We read all your comments and would love to have your feedback. If you are an SLP author, please join our Facebook group, SLP by Day, Author by Night. Hi, everyone. Welcome to SLP by Day, Author by Night. We are so happy to have Laura Smith with us today. And Laura Baskall Smith is an experienced speech-language pathologist specializing in the assessment and treatment of children with motor speech disorders. She has worked as a school-based SLP, private practitioner, consultant, and supervisor. Laura is the recipient of the 2016 American Speech Language Hearing Media Award for garnering nationwide awareness for childhood apraxia of speech. Laura is a heavily sought-after presenter on the topic of CAS and enjoys sharing her unique knowledge and perspective as both an SLP and parent to a child with multiple speech and language disorders. She's the author of Overcoming Apraxia, a memoir on the family experience when a child has CAS. Currently, Laura is a practicing SLP and CAS at her Denver clinic, A Mile High Speech Therapy. Welcome, Laura. We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Laura, so I had the pleasure of meeting you at ASHA a couple of years ago, and was nice to see you in 3D after we'd gotten in touch online. Would love you to introduce our audience a little bit to your background as an SLP. What drew you to the profession to begin with?
So that is actually a long story, but I'll try to sum it up. Fun fact, I was never going to be a speech language pathologist, never heard of it in my life. I was working at a Dodge dealership while I put myself through my bachelor degree through college. And I had fallen in love with this course called language acquisition. And that she said, like, essentially, I wanted to be a journalist. That's what I was going to do.
Wow.
I said, I live in Denver, and they're like, the market is so saturated. If you want to be a journalist, you're going to have to go to a smaller town. Are you willing to do that? And I was like, no, I'm always going to stay in Denver. And so they were like, well, then that's not going to be a good fit. What else do you like? And I was like, I like physical therapy, and I'm pretty good at debate. And they were like, let's put those two together. Let's have you talk to speech therapy. And so she recommended I take that language acquisition class. I took it, and I loved it. But I still wasn't going to be a speech language pathologist. That was going to be my major, was speech communications. And then I was going to move up I worked at a Dodge dealership, and Chrysler oversees Dodge. And so I was going to be a Chrysler customer relations person. Like, that's what I was going to do. And then a recession hit the United States when I graduated, and the car business tanked. And simultaneously, the states were trying to see if SLPAs, do you guys have them in Canada?
Yes.
SLPAs, if there was going to be something we could do here in Colorado. And so they paid me to take the training, even though I still was never going to be a speech therapist. I only took it to get the money. I was like, I get paid to go to college now? Sweet. So I had that training. And at the same time that I, realized that it wasn't going to work at Chrysler, someone from Denver Public Schools called me and was like, hey, we saw that you have a certificate in SLPA. Do you want to interview? And literally the rest is history. I actually talk about her in this book, Deborah, in my book. I talk about Deborah Comfort, and she was one of my supervisors. And one day she kept telling me all year I needed to go to grad school. And I was like, lady, you don't know my life. Like, that's never going to happen. And one of the last weeks of work, I came in and she had the GRE dates, a letter of recommendation, an application to distant learning program at a college here in Colorado. And I was like, why does this woman think I should do this? Like, this is crazy. So I told her, I will just apply to this one school. And, in speech, you usually apply to like 8 to 10 for grad school. And if I don't get it, then it wasn't meant to be. So obviously I got it, and here I
am. Amazing. It's such a message to those of us in the field for a while of how we can be responsible for the next generation, that we can help the right people enter our field.
Yeah.
Because I mean, she gave you a gift, but she gave us as a gift, you as a gift to our field as well.
Oh.
And
Well, thank you.
No, it is true. And it's also like the people who are so meaningful to you in your life, you don't ever forget them.
yeah,
No,
Like as
yeah,
far as a
totally.
supervisor, I actually did that with one of the aides of one of my clients, and she was so good that I pushed her to go to grad school, and now she's a speech pathologist.
Wow.
Yeah, as all, it's just like one of those wonderful things. And then look at how much you contribute. So it's fantastic.
oh, amazing. And you never look back. So once you were in and hooked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I continued to work in the schools as an SLPA. Then I could be an SLP on a temporary license as long as I was, getting my degree.
Yeah,
Um, and then, so a lot of times people ask me, did I become an SLP because of Ashlyn, who's like the focus of my
right.
book, essentially, is my daughter with apraxia. And the answer is no, I was an SLP before I ever had Ashlyn. So.
Well, and I thought, did you become a writer because of Ashlyn, but you actually had wanted to do journalism first. So both of those things were innate in you before.
Yeah, I guess so. The book came about because of I have a web page. I started a blog initially just on Blogger or Blogspot,
Yeah.
and it was SLP Mommy of Apraxia, which are my handles. And I just would write stories about her and things we were going through. And there reached a point where so many people were like, "You should write a book. You should write a book." And I was like, "Everything I would put in the book is free on my website. Like, why would you want me to write a book? It's all free here." But I think there's something about having like a nice little package where it's chronologically makes sense and you're not, searching around a chunky website. And so that's honestly what convinced me to write it was other people
And
again telling me I
and
should write a book.
when was it published?
I self-published through Amazon because I reached out to multiple publishers and it got rejected by all of them. Probably 12, I think I at least tried. And so, ironically enough, I used to work with an SLP in Denver Public Schools who published sci-fi novels, which is completely opposite of what you'd think her day job is. I should refer you guys to her. She's actually a very popular sci-fi. She goes to Comic-Con and everything. But anyways,
I always want to go to Comic-Con. But what was the year of the publication? What year did you publish it?
2019.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I asked her, so I emailed her and we went to lunch and she self-published also, but she didn't mean to self-publish. It was like she had to do it quickly because she thought her mom was going to pass away and she wanted her mom to have the physical copy before. And anyway, the rest is history. And she has like 3 or 4, I don't even know, because she's an author. So she has all these other books now. And so I was like, okay, how do you self-publish? Teach me how to do this. So
Okay, and so then you put it through Amazon through their print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I went through KDP, which is Amazon, and I met another person too. I don't know if you've ever had her on, but Maureen Kakwan.
We haven't had her on. I know Maureen.
Yeah, so she helped me too because she was publishing that Billy Gets Talking book about apraxia.
Oh, yeah, I know that book. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so she told me to also go through Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark lets it be. So if you did it just through Amazon, you can only sell on Amazon unless you get a separate ISBN number, which is what I got. And then you submit that to Amazon, but also Ingram Spark. And then Ingram Spark can distribute your books to like Walmart, Amazon, things like that, and make them available there.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's another interesting. We were talking about that last podcast about the ISBN number. So that's the difference between the different publishers. But it's great because there's so many different options. So as far as because I know you wrote like it's an adult book. But like as far as the editing goes, did you use a professional editor? Like what was your editing process with that?
My whole life is a series of synchronicities. So I wanted this book to be as professional as it possibly could. So for content, I had Dr. Ruth Steckel edit it and Sharon Gretz, who was the founder of Apraxia Kids. So they both edited it for content. So I knew that it was like rock solid in the information I was providing regarding apraxia. But then I was like, man, man, I really want this professionally edited. I don't even know where to find someone like this. And I was at my son's Boy Scout meeting one day, and I'm sitting next to another mom who's working on something. And I was like, oh, what do you do? And she's like, I'm an editor. I'm like, you are? Like,
You're like, I did it.
yeah. And at the time, she was editing professional publications. And so she was like, oh, it'll be so nice to take a break from editing something like this and do like a book. So it was pretty brutal, but she was Berkeley, pretty sure, Berkeley trained, like, you know, very professional. And she slashed so much of my content, you know, like it was a brutal process, but I trusted her. The only thing I didn't take was her advice to leave out my poems. So I have a poem in front of each chapter. And she thought that should go. And that's the only thing I was like, no, that's staying. But yeah, so that's how I found that. That was crazy.
I really enjoyed them. I'm glad. So I finished reading it recently. I finished reading it over the break, and I enjoyed the poems. I enjoyed the quotes that you had in each chapter. It sort of orients the reader, a little bit of like foreshadow of what's going to come in the chapter.
Yeah, yeah, I thought so too. So
yeah.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Could you give an overview of like how the book is structured and what kind of content you cover? Just so for anyone who's like interested in purchasing the book, just so they have and like an understanding of what you cover.
Yeah, so it's going to be the start of the diagnosis and how that felt to me as a parent, which was, you know, you don't necessarily think about that side as an SLP, or at least I didn't until I was on this other side. And I just talk about kind of the journey all through that, and then the up until I think she was 10 years old at the time. So it covers kind of that. It covers IEPs, milestones and delays. It covers like how you venture into advocacy, doing charity events. And then I tried to give it like resources. So, you know, define different terms and definitions, give you places that are credible to go and to access. It talks about my crazy story where I met Ronda Rousey, and by happenstance, I ended up diagnosing her with CAS post her having it. So it tells that whole viral story, which was crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much how it is. And I actually have had professors tell me that they do use it as a book in their courses each semester with certain classes. So that's really exciting.
I thought as I read it, like that it was, you know, based on the title, and because I know you guys, so I knew that Apraxia and Ashlyn's story was going to obviously be front and center. But I hadn't realized how much it's about motherhood in general. When all the Apraxia aside, you paint such a great picture of what it is to be a new mom, and kind of the anxiety and the excitement and the pressure. And I particularly loved there was I had posted it there was a paragraph where you talk about a young speech pathologist basically telling you how she will. Is it okay if I say this? I don't know.
Yeah, anything.
How she, how she will not do what you're doing when she's going to be a mom.
Yeah.
And I think like so many moms and parents in general can really relate to what expert parents everyone is before they have their own children.
Yeah.
And our great expertise before you've walked a mile in anybody's shoes. I think that just particularly because we are a field where so many people are coming right out of university, college, without kids of their own, and then working with kids. On the one hand, I remember being very intimidated by them. Like, who am I to tell these parents what they should do with their children before I had kids? But also kind of with that little bit of judgment that comes in that is very easy to have when you haven't had the experience of sleepless nights or the appreciation of it. I mean, I think that also comes with age. I'm not saying you necessarily have to have kids to be a good speech pathologist, but at all. I'm definitely not saying that.
Yeah.
Just for people who are coming into the field, I thought it was just a great. You painted that picture so well.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I think that that's so true. And that's what, when I've spoken at colleges, because sometimes they'll ask me just to do like a guest lecture, I feel like the students really get it in a way that like you just wouldn't have gotten it before,
Yeah.
like, and they have the most thoughtful questions and it really gets them thinking about something other than their perspective, which is
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question because I meet a lot of parents who are very overwhelmed when they first get the diagnosis of apraxia for their child. And sometimes the kids are even older. They're not very young. But I was just curious just about like what your advice is for any parents or even advice for a speech pathologist, how to communicate what apraxia is, because to us it's like a very common term, right? Like we
Hmm.
know what apraxia is. Um, but for a speech pathologist to be able to communicate that, and also for parents.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is that for one, you have to be honest. So you don't want to, just because you know that someone is going to maybe take it hard or they're going to have a rough time with this, dancing around it doesn't help either. Like
Mhm.
we do need to be told the truth on what it is. But I tell people when they ask me this question that as long as you recognize and are aware that the parent might be going through honestly grief or maybe it's relief. A lot of times parents are relieved because they just felt crazy and no one acknowledged what what they were seeing. That you just acknowledge that they might be going through something. You as a human and as a therapist are going to deliver it differently. It's not going to be like, I remember in IEP meetings, it's just like, you check off the boxes, like, and it's very sterile the way we would do it. And so I definitely wouldn't do it that way anymore. Like, have you heard of this? There's, and then give them a credible resource because they're going to go to Google and then they're going to
Right.
see it can be caused by stroke and they're going to freak out because they don't realize that's AOS and not CAS. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. Because I think if you're a young speech pathologist, you may not have the experience of like communicating with parents. I think that's something like as you become, more seasoned, you become better at communicating with parents. But also, I love that you just said that because if you just Google apraxia, versus childhood apraxia of speech versus,
Hmm.
so I think that explanation to parents is really helpful. And I could see that your book could be a very, very, really nice resource for parents as well. So they
Yeah.
feel like they could read it and they understand that not only you're a speech pathologist, but you're a parent. Um, and I think having both those perspectives is like extremely valuable, because, it's you understand on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. I have this story in the book where I attended an IEP meeting for my own daughter and I knew she was going to be diagnosed with an intellectual disability. Did I have that in the book? Maybe I didn't. At least it was an IEP meeting where I was going to get some very bad information, like that was going to like really hurt me, honestly. And I worked with all these people, and I love all these people, all these colleagues of mine. I was working in the school at the time, and when my husband and I walk into the IEP meeting, they're all talking about this kid's going to college, this kid did this at football, this kid did this at swimming, and all their children who are having all these accomplishments. It's a totally normal conversation to be having
Right.
among colleagues. And it was so tone deaf in a meeting where I was going to get devastating news. So my
Right.
husband and I are just sitting there while they're just all shooting it up, and we're like, cool. We get to be told our kid's really delayed and everything. So great for you guys. Yeah. So like just things like that. When I told them afterward, they all were like devastated. They're like, oh my God, like, we're so sorry. We didn't want to make you feel that way. I'm like, I don't even need apology from you guys. I realize how it is now as a parent. And it's just, I would have been with you guys probably doing that, the same thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, it's so jarring, right? To be on both sides of the table, like
Yes.
from both sides. Um, when you had said that things were very serendipitous and had fallen into place as you were going, what do you find were some obstacles that came in the way for publishing?
For publishing, definitely I was deflated when I didn't hear back from any publishers. I'm like, what am I even doing? This book isn't good. Like, I should just not do this. But I had so many people still on my blog being like, you should do it, you should do it, that I was like, I know that there's an audience for it. And I know that there's an audience for people who like my writing because I had so many people reading my blogs, you know?
Yeah.
So if there wasn't an audience, so I knew that there was. So that I would say that was the biggest obstacle. And then how do you publish ISBN numbers? Like I was new to all of it. So, I mean, luckily just, you know, knowing people, finding those resources. I mean, that was very serendipitous with the editor, but just even reaching out to others I'd known who had published was really helpful. So.
Amazing. I want to just throw in here, just because there's going to be people listening from Canada and the States. We've talked about ISBN on a couple of shows, that in Canada, the process for finding an ISBN is different than in the States. So if you're a Canadian listener, you have to go to our Library of Congress, find the ISBN separately.
Okay.
But just for
but I also want to say like the value of, because I don't know if you still blog, but I feel like I was one of those like original bloggers too. Like so many years ago, I feel like it was, I don't remember, maybe it was like 2007 or 6, I don't know. But building a community of people, I think is really helpful because we talk about marketing a lot. And if people already loved your writing, they're going to want to purchase your book. So I think that's another great way of like building that community. I mean, now it's, I guess, more social media. But do you still blog at all, or?
I don't actually. I've thought about it so many times. My website is down right now. My SLPmommyofapraxia.com is down at the moment because we're fixing some stuff. But I've thought of it. Gets so many hits. It's wild. It is wild how many hits my website gets. And I've thought about doing it, and I just haven't. So yeah, I mean, basically what I switched to is more of a vlogger format where I do stuff on TikTok and, you know, reels and stuff like that. Or like a picture on Instagram and like usually to Instagram, but it posts to Facebook with a longer narrative. So it would read like a blog, but it's attached to the picture.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think also some of the older, I think certain things are timeless, right? Like it may be like an old blog that you were talking about probably is something that other people could still relate to, like getting a diagnosis for a child. Doesn't matter if it's 2015, 2020, or 2025. I mean, it's still probably one of the same feelings and stuff. So anyway, it's interesting.
I know you didn't do it intentionally. It worked out this way, but the sequence of your marketing in that way was correct. Like that, first you built the audience and then you created the product. And in our, coming from naive SLPs, right, where we are taught nothing about marketing, we normally would think you have your product. Once you have your product, you market it. And once I started to have to sell my own stuff, like marketing people are saying, no, you have to build the audience first. And you inadvertently really did that. Your audience built your, or it pushed you into writing the book, right? And it's the correct sequence because you then have a community before you've marketed, before you've created the product. And it's counterintuitive, I think, for those of us who are not natural marketers or who were, didn't start out.
Or the other thing I found, it was very, I did not purposefully do that. It did just end up working out that way. But I do think that is the way you want to do it, is start building a community. If you have a product in mind, like start building your community first so that they know you, they trust you. You already know that they like your messaging or like what you're saying. I would definitely do it that way.
Yeah, you have the conversation first and then the item later.
Because I found too, I mean, I have my social media now, I feel like forever. So of course I have a lot of followers, especially on Facebook, but people will create a product and then they'll come to you and be like, hey, can you tell your audience about it? And it's like, that's not exactly how this works. Like, I built my audience not to market other people. Not that I won't market. If I like your product and, I mean, this is another thing I think people should, sorry, I'm kind of like taking a little divergent route here, but I think it's an important message because this happens to people like me and my friend Jordan Levan, who runs Fighting for My Voice all the time, is that people will ask us to do this. If you want me to market your book, I have no problem doing that, but send me a free copy then. And then I can decide if it's something that resonates with me. And if it is something that resonates with me, then I will promote it. Just like I did Maureen. So that is exactly what Maureen did of Billy Gets Talking, is she sent me the manuscript and was like, do you think this is good? I'm like, oh my God, I wanted a book like this. That was like, there was no books like that when she first published that. And I was like, oh my, I wanted to market it immediately and tell everyone this book existed. So anyway, that would be my other piece of it.
That's not divergent at all. That's very much on topic.
Well, no, but it is true because like that you have to have it and see it and like use it and understand it before you recommend something.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, and as professionals, I mean, we've all been working for a long time. We know what we like and what we may not like.
Yes.
Well, and also if you are going to be talking about a product, you know, like it reflects on you, you want that to have the integrity behind what you're standing with, right? And
yeah, which is why I say too, like send them a free copy. In the end, it might help you more than in, you know, the initial cost you fronting it at the beginning, because you might have people who then genuinely got exposed to your product and want to share it. But when you cold call or cold email someone is like, hey, I have this book, will you tell your audience? I'm like, that's not good.
I agree. I always send free copies.
It happens all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually share a lot of copies of anything that I'm publishing just so people could see it before they share it. I have a question just about apraxia in general, because you know you published it in 2019. Has there been, I know that's like your main focus is apraxia. Has there been anything in the past 5-6 years that you feel like has like been something that you would suggest, let's say, other parents or other speech pathologists to know about that maybe not include in your book because it's the past 5 years? Or do you feel like it's like all the techniques are still the same?
I mean, yeah, definitely research. There's been a lot of research even so this, you know, I would have written the content even before 2019. So they were really refining what principles of motor learning looked like, because ASHA only officially recognized apraxia in 2007. So if you think about that, by the time
I didn't even realize that. Okay.
And so only then did we have a technical report on the characteristics of CAS that was like consistent across the board. So the work that was done between essentially Edwin Moss started, you know, he was tasked with looking at how do we use principle, if we know this is a motor learning problem, how do we use principles of motor learning, which has been around forever in things that are non-speech related, and how do we adapt it for speech therapy? And so then between 2009 and then even the time that I wrote this book, you know, leading up to 2017, 2019, they were really redefining what that looked like. Like, how do we do this? Okay, that, you know, and then by the time we've hit now, we have current randomized control trials now on approaches that use principles of motor learning. And so even Edith Strand refined her approach, DTTC, in a report in 2020. And so that research article in 2020 was to set up for the RCTs, and she revised DTTC and the hierarchy. So yeah, I would say there's definitely that. So, you know, all the approaches, Kaufman rebranded to the KSLP instead of the Kaufman method. That was to align with principles of motor learning, from my understanding, in part. So definitely that. And then the other thing that they found since then is that kids with apraxia have an auditory perceptual difficulty many times. And so to add to your assessment, you might want to be looking at that auditory perceptual piece because they're not hearing it correctly. So that's been new research we found. And then research that I hope that we're going to be moving toward now will be how, if I have like a whole talk that's like way beyond the planning and programming the movements for speech, because the way apraxia affects someone in their entire life is significant beyond just their speech. And so if we could get research to catch up with what we know from the first person perspectives now of adults who have grown up with it and can tell us what they go through, that's where I want to see it go. But yeah, definitely lots of research too recently that shows SLPs aren't confident making a diagnosis of CAS. Makes sense. Like, there's no shade to anyone. Like, so we just have to get a lot better with training. Another research paper came out recently that said where SLPs aren't diagnosing before 3, and they think that's because of Ash's advice in the website. So anyway, there's a long way to go. I think it's always important to brush up on your research in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I like that you just said that a speech pathologist can make the diagnosis, because I know that's not always very clear. I think a lot of times people like think it has to be from a doctor, a neurologist, that it can't be a speech pathologist. So I think that's good to clarify that.
It depends
Asha
where.
says that
Yeah.
the best professional to diagnose CAS is a speech language pathologist, but one who has experience in motor speech.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, 100%. And I think, for anyone listening who, let's say, well, if you are a speech pathologist, you would know this. But if you're not and you're looking to maybe go into the profession, the speech pathology is such a huge field, and that we all have specialties within it.
Yes.
And so for me, if somebody was coming, because I do AAC and assistive tech, so if somebody wanted something specifically for apraxia, I would refer to a person who has more expertise in that area.
And that's what I do for AAC.
Exactly. No, I work with a few people who do they do the speech, I'm doing the communication.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing. And I think for a lot of parents, listen, I work with a lot of parents of children who have apraxia, and they just get really, really overwhelmed with it. And that's why I think your book is so helpful, because it's parent friendly, and it just gives a really nice explanation of it, and you give really great resources. So
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. How do you balance your work, like the writing versus the SLP piece? I know you have a few things burning on, a few pots burning at a time. How do you balance it all?
I mean, my mom is always like, Laura, like, you took on something else. But I feel like if I
I know that's
honestly,
the story of our lives, right?
she's like, why do you do this to yourself?
I know, I get the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm like, if I did ever find a quote unquote balance, I'll have my mind working. That means I'm going to be idle. And when I'm idle, then I have like inspirations and passions and ideas that I end up taking on something else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more like an entrepreneurial spirit. If you have it, you have it. And when you have it, I'm not sure you do find balance, but like you're okay with it also.
Yeah.
Even though you feel crazy sometimes. I don't know. At least that's me.
Yeah. Do you find you're doing like bits and pieces of everything on any given day, or you've got your schedule chunked?
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. Unless I'm in speech, like unless I'm doing actual therapy and I do have blocks that are back to back to back to back to back, which is also crazy. That's probably the only time I'm not multitasking or, doing things. Even right before I came on with you guys, I was scheduling a consultation, and then I was scheduling a meeting with the Apraxia Foundation, like literally, 3 minutes before. I was like, oh, I got 3 minutes. I bet I can get this done.
Yeah. So do you have any more writing in your future as far as anything else that you're working on?
So people want me to write a part 2, because this did end when Ashlyn was 10, and like so much has happened now as a teenager and just her whole experience like that.
How old is she now?
I haven't,
How old is she now?
She's 16.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I might do that. Honestly, I speaking of lots of pots boiling, so my husband has bipolar disorder, and I'm allowed to say this, and it significantly affected our life probably right after I wrote this book. And so actually I'm doing the same marketing plan with that I did with Apraxia, except it's purposeful this time. Remember I told you with Apraxia it was not purposeful?
Yeah.
So I started on TikTok, and I built this whole community that's bigger than my Apraxia community, if you can believe it, on TikTok, of spouses of bipolar disorder. And I just want to help people because you're not given any advice. So I'm 3/4 of the way done with that book. And so I have the community.
Wow.
I have a podcast for that as well with someone in Tennessee who has a husband with it. And that's probably going to be my next book.
That's awesome. That's really, and I think it's a really needed, it's like a needed resource. Because I think a lot
Yeah.
of people could get very, lost with that. So to
Yeah,
have
they
community.
need something, like partners need something, and I see the need there just like I did here, and I want to do it in the exact same way I did this. I want a poem before each chapter. I want the memoir type style, but then the resources and like
Yeah.
exactly how I set up this book but related to that. So I'm pretty excited about that. It has my husband's blessing. He's so happy that I'm doing this and helping people that way. So, and then after that, I have actually another idea because my life has been very synchronicitous, like and serendipitous, and I feel like by those two books, Overcoming Apraxia and whatever the bipolar one is, I want to write one that explains how I could have chose not to listen to Deborah Comfort. And
Right.
that would have changed the course of my life forever. You know what I mean? But I did. But I feel like so many people might be at crossroads in their life where they didn't choose to say yes. And what did they miss out on? They'll never even know.
Yeah.
So I want a book like that, like listen to like those signs, synchronicities, things like that. Anyway, that's my long-term one though.
That
Wow.
sounds
Wow.
amazing. It sounds
Well, you're a
amazing.
doer. You're a do nah, like when you're a doer, you're like that's it. You just keep
Yeah.
doing. But that's what keeps it, you know what? It keeps you like happy and also it's like exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. It is. Like when you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work. When you're creating something like that, it
Uh-huh.
is work, but it doesn't feel that way because you're passionate about it.
Where are you then for the apraxia case, you were very much in the field professionally, right? But for the bipolar, then you're coming in from a client patient perspective, but without necessarily the professional expertise. Where are you drawing in the professional side? So I know you're not going to do it without it.
So interestingly enough, professionals don't know. I know more than them.
Uh-huh.
Seriously, it's bad. Like there's terms even it's wild out here in the mental health world, you guys, especially related to
Mhm.
that. But I have like other parent advocates. Like there's a group in Colorado with this amazing advocate mom that I talk to and things like that. Honestly, the pressure is so much less with the bipolar book because I needed to make this look and be as accurate and professional as possible because it is my professional face behind it,
Right.
right? Like this had to be solid. It is so much stress writing a bipolar book where I'm just like, hey, this is what happened. This is my life as someone who
Mhm.
lived it. And like, this is what happened. And yeah, I will like, I haven't, I probably will ask a professional to just review it and make sure the term, like that I'm not leading
Terminology and
astray with terminology, but there's way less stress just as the lay person. I even
uh-huh.
say, when I talk about bipolar, I even say, I'm not a therapist, even though I am, but
So
not for
it'll
bipolar.
lean more
You know
on
what
the
I mean?
memoir
Right,
side of
right.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I presume with some resources towards the community or things that you've
Yeah.
pulled from the community. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that because I always think it's also very interesting to learn about different, different things because a lot of our clients that come to us are very complex.
Yes.
So they don't just have like, at least with my clients, we don't have just one diagnosis. We have several. So it's always good to be able to know a lot of different things so that we can help advocate and like understand our clients better.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, if you read a book about somebody's experience with bipolar disorder, it doesn't just tell you about the experience with bipolar. A lot of that experience is going to be relatable to many other situations that people are in.
Yeah.
And challenges that might come from different ways. And so just like, overcoming apraxia was very much about motherhood. Uh,
Yeah.
and it relates to a much broader topic than just what might narrowly seem to be, might appear narrow from the title, but it's really encompasses many things.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna have a few copies on hand to hand that out.
Yeah.
It's in my bag because, I think a lot of parents could really benefit from your book. So,
The amount of parents I have at least once a month now, but definitely when I first published, so many people continue to write me and still say like I sobbed through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like it was just that relatable in terms of how hard it was and just like being heard. Like I think that's what I tell people too. Tell your story.
Yeah.
There's power in your story. There are people who are just like you help, like even on the bipolar, for example, on my TikTok, there are people every single day on that one that are like, your TikToks got me through this. Like just my story, like that got someone through it. So tell your story.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to like talk about before we finish up today?
Are you asking me or Tali?
No, you. Is there anything we haven't? Is there anything that we haven't covered? We just want to make sure we've covered everything. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to mention or discuss?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, actually.
We did good ground.
Yeah, and we'll have also links to all of your social media and your TikTok, including the TikTok. And definitely let us know when your book comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Thank you so much, Laura. It was so great
Thank you
speaking
so
with
much.
you today.
It was so great.
Thank you, ladies.
This is SLP by Day,
Author by Night,
with Tali Kellerstein and
Becca Eisenberg,
bringing the SLP writing community
together.